Obligatory spoiler warning, just in case you are concerned with experiencing the story of a 22-year-old obscure licensed GameCube game yourself. If you are, please play it and come on back. Enjoy the video. Liminal. Defined as the quality of ambiguity or disorientation that occurs in the middle stage of a rite of passage, when participants no longer hold their pre-ritual status but have not yet begun the transition to the status they will hold when the rite is complete. It is the in-between of sorts, a place where you aren't supposed to stop. It merely is meant as a waypoint in the place you're meaning to go. Whether that be a physical journey, such as stopping at an obscure motel on a road trip, or whether that be a metaphysical one, such as remembering the way your neighborhood felt as you were growing up from a child into a young adult. That can also play into the dreams we have in between sleeping and waking, in between shedding our old self from the previous time we were conscious. We're all familiar with liminal spaces, with how unsettling they can be, how lonely they can be, how oddly quiet they can be, how strangely comforting they can be. A place where there should be plenty of interaction and activity, rendered desolate by the environment that swallowed them whole. These spaces exist in all forms of media: physical spaces, photographs, renders, even audio. Sometimes these spaces also exist in interactable media. We all know how some believe that Super Mario 64 is one of the most liminal games of all time. You're on a journey in this giant castle that is actually devoid of anyone or anything. You wander the halls alone, jumping in paintings to gather strength to save the owner who doesn't even have a bedroom in her own castle. The castle is the hub. You aren't necessarily meant to stop and take it in too deeply, but when you do, when you stop and really consider everything going on, things just feel off. Not scary necessarily, but just a bit strange. A lot of games from the early 3D days had this feeling in them. Hardware just wasn't powerful enough for every game at the time to be able to have their worlds feel full and lively. You get these amazing environments with seemingly nothing in them but yourself. The aforementioned castle of Super Mario 64, the upper portion of Stone Hill in the first Spyro the Dragon, the central hub outside the tower in Glover, and the entirety of Disney's Magical Mirror starring Mickey Mouse. Now, this game was one that was cemented into my mind since I was a young child. I would randomly get flashes of it from time to time as I would go throughout my memories, as I often do as I get older. I remember the unease it made me feel, the strange, surrealness of everything, I guess is one way to put it. Of course, I also remember the certain disturbing moments, all thanks to our quote-unquote little friend who messes with Mickey throughout his entire time in the strange dreamscape that he's in. Now, this little floating sheet with paper hands and lemons for eyes, he just loves to use every trick he has available to him to mess with you during your adventure throughout the mansion. And of course, you gotta, find your way out of this mansion that you found yourself in. Somehow he managed to grab the attention of Mickey as he was practicing his nightly ritual of astral projection, I guess, and led him through his bedroom mirror into the strange alternate dimension full of murder hornets, impossible geometry, toys that have minds of their own, appliances that have a ski slope inside of them that ends up coughing you out of a painting. The list just goes on and on and on. Now, the game isn't long. It really is actually kind of quite short. I went through the process of fully 100%ing the game. Yes, I completed this game for this video. And from start to finish, I wound up at exactly 3 hours and 47 minutes, according to my save file. Of course, this game is meant for kids. I'm a 26-year-old adult living in an age where you can access the GameFAQs guide from your fingertips instead of, having to run downstairs to use the clunky family computer with less than ideal internet speeds. I digress. This game can be confusing, to put it lightly. The mansion twists and turns, rooms turn into more rooms, bigger rooms, rooms that loop in on themselves. I mean, heck, at one point you even stumble into a giant clock tower that you access from a cave behind a painting in the basement of the mansion you're in. Nothing really makes sense, and I guess it makes sense that it doesn't make sense because you're in this weird dream alternate reality thing. It's just, created in that space between sleeping and waking that we talked about earlier. Mickey and yourself traverse through these hallways, and you very quickly notice the lack of anything. There's no one else living there. There are other bedrooms, plenty of common areas, a functional kitchen, entertainment, but all of it goes unused. I mean, heck, you even got like a little amphitheater performance room that is just empty. There's some chairs in it for an audience, but there's no audience to be found. The only other NPCs that you run into are our ghostly friend that we mentioned before, the single murder hornet I mentioned, and there's two fish that seemingly are romantically involved with each other somehow, some way. Maybe they're the owners, turned into fish by the ghost. I have no idea. But that's it. No other friends of Mickey to speak of. You do collect remnants of them that somehow made it back to your room in the physical world, and even see a cartoon with them in it, but they aren't anywhere to be found. It's almost as if something had happened to them, maybe. Like the ghost had lured them into the same space and they were unable to make their way back to their body. Now that just sounds like a really bad creepypasta, but hey, who knows? Now, I guess I should mention that making it back to your body is the main point of the game. You came into this place through a mirror in your bedroom, as I said before, and that's also your exit. Of course, it isn't that simple. As you see yourself sleeping away on the other side, the mirror will shatter into 12 different pieces as you try to go through it, and those pieces get shrunken down and scattered throughout the liminal maze that you found yourself in. Now, some are actually pretty easily found. You can find quite a few right away, actually, but others definitely require a bit more critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Our ghostly friend has a lot of these shards for itself in specific rooms, while others are so obscurely hidden that I did have to use that GameFAQs guide from October of 2003. Thank you to Toro for putting that together, wherever you are 21 years later. Now, the main gimmick of collecting these mirror shards is what the game calls tricks, quote unquote. Basically where the mansion will just mess with Mickey for seemingly no other reason than to cause him bodily harm or have something silly happen. Now, don't get me wrong, these are great little slapstick moments and definitely do call back to those old cartoons and animations that we're familiar with. But after these tricks finish up, some being short, some being long, and some being frustratingly chained together, you usually are awarded with a mirror shard, a key to unlock a door, or an item to help you progress, or another star, which the stars are used to make these tricks happen. Those stars are honestly a bit of a frustrating mechanic, at least in the beginning portion of the game. You start off with only one and can eventually build up yourself to a maximum of 12, but by the time you can get those 12, you will have no need for that many. It feels like there wasn't much thought put into this mechanic, like it was just slapped together with a good enough sticker thrown on it. And there honestly probably wasn't much thought put into this game as a whole. It was originally thought to be by gamers in the early 2000s a platformer type of game, but for whatever reason ended up being a pseudo-creepy baby's first point-and-click adventure game. The only real interaction Mickey has with the mansion is through the tricks or the few mini-games spread throughout. Now, the mini-games are actually somewhat interesting and can be comical in a sense. Throughout the game, there are different moments that require Mickey to do certain things to progress. Now, one such instance is being shrunken down by a toy witch and riding a wooden toy train to reach another room with a mouse hole. Then you have to go through that mouse hole into another room where you have to plug in a TV. Now, I tried for so long to just click on the plug from the side of the TV where, Mickey could reach it, but of course it just didn't work and I just didn't understand. Anyway, after you accomplish that, you can return to the room you came from, but this time you're in front of the train, on the floor. But you notice something off on your return. This rubber duck that was almost unnoticeable during your first walkthrough has now come to life. And it wants your life. I mean, this isn't terrifying at all, and the game has so many of these weird, almost out-of-place moments, but more on those in a bit. Anyways, Mickey eventually hops into a replica biplane and gets a splash with the rubber duck. I mean, this is just top tier gaming right here. Battlefield or Call of Duty have nothing on this. You then realize the duck was, of course, being possessed by our spooky little friend, and he flies off into the poster of the sky, and Mickey follows closely behind in his plane. You then have to fly around shooting balloons, extending your timer, and getting speed boosts before having a little boss battle with the ghost. It's a super cool little mini game, and as a bonus for completing it, you get rewarded with different amounts of stars based on how well you did. Now, this is just one of the mini games. There are 5 others you'll run into on your time within the mansion. They're each of varying quality and offer the same type of reward at the end of them. Now, one thing I didn't mention so far was that this game was actually developed by Capcom. Yes, that Capcom, the company responsible for Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, Street Fighter, and, some other notable game franchises. The strangely cool thing with this, if you want to put it that way, is that you can really see their other works being put into this game in a sense. Now, your camera angles and exploration loops are straight from Resident Evil. Think about it. You go from room to room in this weird labyrinth of a mansion, solving inventory puzzles until eventually you're able to progress. Now, of course, there's a bit of, lack of combat in this game, except for when Mickey wrecks that rubber duck, but you really can see the comparison. Other honorable mentions are the flying sword minigame and the cutscene that comes before it, being a straight port of when Dante first gets Alistar in Devil May Cry. Another being the barrel minigame in the basement of the mansion, and the ghost is throwing barrels Mickey's way, and Mickey has to uppercut or throw Hadoukens at them to stop them from ruining his day. This is an obvious homage to Street Fighter and a similar minigame from Street Fighter 2. Oh, and another thing from Resident Evil actually are the scares. Yeah, the scares. See, on top of the liminality this mansion gives off, our little ghostly friend loves playing those tricks of his. Some aren't any more than a silly little slapstick gag. Others, though...
Huh?
I mean, come on. Baby's first jump scare, I guess? This did come out in 2002, so screamers were certainly at their peak. But, I mean, you think of the context. You're a, 7-year-old kid playing their GameCube late at night? Your room illuminated by the glow of your CRT TV in this game. You're already on edge because the ghost could be lurking anywhere, and then this happens. It would be a shock to almost any kid in that situation, myself included. I vividly remember this scene as a kid. Now, this game has a lot of these out-of-place moments. One room you stumble into seems like it was copy and pasted from an abandoned house down the road. There's a single candle in the middle of the table. Let's go ahead and light it. What could go wrong? I guess I should have guessed something like that was going to happen. Now, you also have carnivorous suitcases, a scene where you think Mickey might get eaten by a shark or something, and when the ghost straight up tries to kill Mickey by crushing him with a chandelier, and then almost impales him through his skull with a pair of hedge trimmers that he used to cut the chandelier from the ceiling. I mean, it's kind of like someone randomly just screaming at you after they tell you a joke and you're both laughing together. The scenes are just really uncanny and honestly just add to the overall unease that this game gives off at points. There's no denying that the environments are beautiful and absolutely give off that wonderful cartoony vibe that Disney is so famous for, but everything just feels so fake. The portion of the game where you end up on a high clock tower and can see the surrounding town, but it's all just what looks like a cardboard cutout. I don't really know how to describe the feeling. It's almost like you're in a giant playhouse, but there are actual toys in the mansion, so who knows? What I do know is that even with all the tricks that the house plays on Mickey and all the lengths that the ghost goes to try and trap his soul with him so they can play together forever, Mickey still feels bad for leaving the ghost by himself. So I think the game tries to convey a message about someone seeking out attention, even if that attention may be negative. The ghost, I suppose, has been living in the halls of Liminal Mansion by himself for who knows how long, and all they wanted was a friend and someone to keep them company. Sure, the ghost almost kills their supposed friend multiple times, but it was all in good fun. Mickey is super understanding though, and after gathering all the mirror shards, repairing the magical mirror, and stepping back through to get reintroduced to his physical body, he turns around one last time and invites the ghost to come back with him. The ghost happily obliges and is then turned into a fan mobile for the rest of eternity, or until Mickey does some spring cleaning and gets rid of some old decor that needs replaced. Upon finishing the game, you get some interactable credits where you can throw Hadoukens at the devs' names for some points. The points don't do anything, and there isn't like a leaderboard or a scoreboard or anything. You also get an extra quote-unquote game mode, if you can call it that, in the form of being able to hide these 5 hats throughout the mansion in different spots. I suppose this is maybe some arbitrary hide-and-seek minigame where one person can hide the hats for someone else to go find, just in case you needed more excuses to roam these weird halls. There's also a bonus room, which is just Mickey's bedroom, where you can examine the different items of Mickey's friends and different items relating to the games in closer detail. You can also get access to the mini games and a sound tester, so you can hear the amazing music that constantly loops for the entirety of the duration of the game whenever you want. Oh, and you get the most amazing 100% completion bonus out of any game I have seen to date. Absolutely nothing. This game, all in all, isn't the best game, but on a surface level, it's a functional children's game with Mickey Mouse going on a somewhat enjoyable puzzle-solving adventure. The environments are well put together, the puzzles can be obscure and frustrating at times, but the slapstick comedy is enough to keep someone going, and the game isn't all that long. Any longer than the 3 to 5 hour time frame this game has going would definitely be a slog, but it feels just the right length for what it is. The uncanniness that the mansion gives off and the setting in general has some kind of draw to it, I feel, as well. Nothing super off-putting or outright scary, but certainly unsettling to a degree. You always feel like someone else ought to be there, but they just never are. That liminal feeling is something I never could get enough of, though, and I'm sure you feel the same. Next time when you're going through life on a journey, take a second to just take a break in the middle of it and take in your surroundings. We almost never know when we're in that in-between we always hear about, but sometimes you can catch it in person and it makes it that much more enjoyable. Thank you for watching the video. Keep it low-key and have a good night.